as Heather said, I am Alicia Cowart. I work at CU Denver, so that's the University of Colorado Denver, not to be confused with the University of Denver, which is a private school. University of Colorado Denver is part of the University of Colorado system, which includes Boulder, Anschutz, and Colorado Springs as well, similar to the University of California. So I am talking today about the good, the bad, the weird, establishing a geospatial service lab at a large public university. So as Heather mentioned, I am the director of the Geospatial Analysis and Mapping Lab at CU Denver, and I'm also an instructor in the department. So for some background, since I don't have that many maps to show you today, I just decided to start with a bunch of maps, and these are all student maps. I've been teaching cartography for 7 or 8 years. I realized yesterday I was in my 8th year teaching cartography, which is kind of exciting. Still have things to learn, of course. On the top right is the classroom I used to teach in at UC Berkeley, where I was a lecturer and also the staff cartographer in the department, and some of my student maps from that period of time. And then on the right-hand side, I have some student atlases from my current position at CU Denver, where I have both grad students and undergrads, and the grads make atlases. So that's kind of cool. So I'm very excited to kick off this session. And one of the things that I was really excited about with this session is all the things that people are talking about. So for instance, I just joined a community of practice on my campus for ungrading, which Heather will be talking about. I definitely use Boston Public Library's Bending Lines exhibition in my teaching. It's a great resource, which Eric, I think, will be talking about. And of course, always love hearing about teaching map making, which Carl will be talking about as well. So the context for all of this is, of course, working in academia, teaching cartography. And what I found throughout that whole, the years that I've been doing that, is that there's a lot of need from people who are not geographers, who are not cartographers, for someone to make maps, either for their publications, for their projects. And so that's one of the reasons I was really excited to begin this process of establishing this lab at CU Denver, is that it is meant to be both a research and a service lab, meaning we can provide services to the campus community or really anyone who would need some kind of map production service. So the GAM lab is what we call it. It's the Geospatial Analysis and Mapping Lab. I'm in the Geography and Environmental Sciences department, which is great. I love being in geography. And we have several master's programs. We have a very large master's student population, which is great. And one of our masters is the Applied Geography and Geospatial Sciences. And this is just an image of the lab on the top or the bottom right, which again is where I was trying to figure out how to make exciting slides with pictures of the inside of what looks like an office space, and it's fluorescent lit and everything else. And then on the top right is the website that I'm still working on. So before I get into the process of establishing this lab, I don't want to forget my very, very quick GC guerrilla cartography plug. So for those of you who are familiar with guerrilla cartography, I've been a part of this group for a number of years now. It came out of UC Berkeley. And we've now just completed our 3rd atlas in the trilogy. So these are all crowdsourced atlases. Many of you have contributed to these atlases. So Food, Water, Shelter is our trilogy, and Shelter is currently at the print shop as we speak. And this is just a little sneak preview of a few of those maps on the bottom there from that atlas that will be out very, very soon. If you're interested in this, find me later and we'll chat. All right, so the title of my talk comes from this movie, which I have to embarrassingly say I have not seen the whole thing. I've seen parts of it. It is one of my partner's favorite movies, so that's kind of why I thought of the title, and I thought that it appropriately described the process of setting up this geospatial lab, the good, the bad, the weird. Was it ridiculous fun? I'll let you decide. So starting, of course, with the good, as always, with any map critique, we start with what we like and what's working with the map and things like that in my class. So starting with the positive, the good. So I have a very supportive department. I have a very wonderful, supportive department chair who is also a cartographer who went to the University of Minnesota. So that's been really great. I have an operating budget, which is huge. So not the budget, but the fact that I have an operating budget. Must clarify that. So the fact that I have an operating budget is really important. It allows me to buy things like printing supplies. Probably the most fun I had buying things was all these books and atlases, which I'm going to continue to do, just to have available for students to look at in the lab. We also have a lot of resources for our students, which is really great. So in addition to the lab that I run, which is a research and service lab, we also have a teaching lab called the Facility for Advanced Spatial Technology, the FAST lab for short, and that is where the classroom is, as well as additional space for students to work on class projects. And then there are a lot of human resources as well. So there's a lot of faculty that teach geospatial courses. We have Diane Fritz in the library, who's really great. Some of you may know her. We also have the coordinator of the FAST lab, Jen Ambrose, who is also wonderful. She got her GIS certificate from this department, or from our program, and she runs her lab. And our two labs were set up by the same person, so we do a lot together with coordinating and trying to figure out fun IT problems and things like that. Very fun. So the bad, and here's where a lot of this, especially the first two, isn't really specific to my case. This is a broader thing in higher education that many of us are probably familiar with, which is that there are some, what I consider to be a crisis in higher education, which is moving the priorities away from education, teaching, and research to other things, whatever they may be. So there's an over-reliance on contingent faculty, part-time faculty, and there's never really enough money to do the education and do the research that we are all trying to do. And that's the case in every institution that I have worked at. So it's not just a specific case. And of course, all of that is worsened by the pandemic. Relatedly, lots of people have retired and resigned in recent years. That sort of cuts off the institutional knowledge, the history of the place, including how my lab was set up, actually, before I got there. In 2020, by the way. I started in the summer of 2020, as you can imagine, great place, great time to start. Actually, it is a great place. I love this job. But, so that's my last point, which is that I was new at this large institution, trying to establish a new lab during a new pandemic. So trying to figure out who I needed to talk to, how do I get things done? And this is why I have these images of me in a mask in this long empty hallway. I was one of the people that was allowed on campus when there was almost no one there, and I was new, and I was kind of wandering around by myself. So that was very interesting. But the other thing about the Great Resignation is that, again, it's not unique to my institution. It's very, it's happening everywhere in every industry. And because of the turnover and not being able to replace those people in a timely manner, myself, my colleagues are all doing multiple jobs, right? We're all doing multiple things. I'm teaching 2 classes, even though I'm technically staff. And so that's taking up a lot of my time, even though I love it. I love teaching. It's important to me. I really need, 2 of me to do this job, basically. So the weird is all the stuff around establishing this lab that felt like I was reinventing the wheel. And this is just, what happens sometimes when you think, surely there's another center on campus that does similar things. Why am I making this, whole new thing to create this lab where we can do contract work and be, put into grants and things like that? At times I felt like I needed a law degree, an accounting degree, and a decade of experience in IT, in addition to my PhD in geography, in order to even communicate with all the folks on campus I needed to communicate with, to, get this set up. And then the very unique to my campus is the Auraria Higher Education Center is a campus with 3 colleges on it. So Community College of Denver, the Metro State University, and University of Colorado Denver are 3 colleges on this one campus. So it's basically a campus with a landlord. So if you are managing a space, you don't have control over it fully. So that's been interesting to deal with as well. All right, so I'm going to end with some recommendations. So this is basically, here's my experience, and here's what I would recommend if anyone, is thinking about setting up a lab in their space. Obviously, financial and institutional support is very important. I just realized I had my cursor there the whole time. No. Talk to other people who run geospatial labs on other campuses. This is where NACIS, the NACIS community was really important. It was really great to have people that I could contact and reach out to and talk to. Find people in similar centers on your campus. And that's hard, but it can be done, and they will at least know who to contact to put together these various pieces of the puzzle. Find your allies in various offices on campus. This is Jen Ambrose. She's the coordinator of the FAST Lab. She and I and Diane have formed what we call Auraria Geospatial, dealing with all the sort of geospatial things on our campus. And so that's been really great as a collaborative process. And then, of course, don't have a pandemic. So with that, I would love, if we have time, I would love to have your questions, comments, advice. And by the way, this is, I meant to mention this before, this is a historic brewery, a working brewery on campus. And it's a beautiful building, has some good beers. If you're coming to AAG, which is in Denver this year, come visit the lab, which I will at some point have an open house, I believe. Come say hi, and we can have a beer at the Tivoli, which is a lovely place. So thanks. Yeah.
Who are your primary clients, or is it mostly CU Denver folks, or do you serve other community organizations outside? Like, who do you make maps for?
So it just occurred to me I'm still wearing my mask, so that's interesting. Right now, because it took so long to get the process going to create this service center, to be able to take in money, essentially, for the work we're doing, it's really just been my friends' friends from grad school, and a few people, in my department, but we haven't advertised yet. And so this is the beginning. Right now, we're beginning to advertise. And so we're starting to get more interest. But again, just because people know that I've been a cartographer for many years, and they contact me. But once we start advertising, I expect it to be both campus and off-campus folks.
So can you describe a little bit about how you research the need, and then how do you get to people who don't know that they need a map?
Good question. So,
Could you repeat the question? Yeah. Would you want to repeat it?
yeah, sure. So the question was about the need. How do you assess the need, I think, for the mapping services, and how do I reach out to people who might not know they need mapping services? So the need piece, again, I think it's really anytime I talk to people about what I do, whether it's, colleagues on campus or elsewhere, everyone says, wow, I really need someone to make a map for me. And so it's not, I know the need is there. I haven't done a formal assessment, but just knowing that I've been able to make maps for people before I was even, technically allowed to with the contracts and all that. So I basically invoiced for stuff I did last year, a couple of months ago. So before we even started advertising, and then as far as how do I let people know we're here and see, tell them maybe you need a map, is what I've been doing so far is offering workshops, things like that, just to let people know that we're here, and let them know that, this is something they might be interested in having in their research or in their publications, and, that kind of thing. In the past, I've done guest lectures and classes, which has also been helpful to just kind of get the word out. But again, it comes down to we need to actually start advertising our services, which, had to wait until we got the other pieces structured, basically. And so at this point, I feel like once people realize that that is something that they can, contract or put into grants and things, we'll have a lot more interest. Martha. Sorry.
You have to wrap up, so maybe you could ask your question and then you can all sort of simmer it and talk about that.
How are you getting people to work in your lab, or students to work in your lab, and how is that gonna, are they paid or are they class credit, or how's that working?
Yeah, so right now, because it's also a research lab, if they're working on a research project with a faculty member, they can come in and work in the lab. I have started hiring students to work in the lab, and I do pay them based on our student assistant, pay scale. And right now, my plan is to hire a pool of students that I can reach out to as projects come in based on their skill sets and their experiences. So we've just started to recruit and hire people that way. I did hire a PhD student over the summer who is wonderful, and she could probably run the lab by herself, but she's also teaching 2 classes this semester. So we're both, trying to get things up and running, and also teaching a lot. So thank you.